What is going on, everybody? I am back today because for the first time in a while, I was actually able to go to the movie theater and watch a new release movie. And the film I'm going to be talking about today, I've seen the trailer for quite a few times since it's been released. And honestly, from the trailer, it looked really charming and funny, like it had a lot of potential. And this movie is also written by Diablo Cody, who wrote Jennifer's Body, which is a movie I really enjoy and find absolutely hilarious. It was really misunderstood around the time it came out, but I remember I saw it 2 or 3 times in the theater, and I've watched it multiple times since then. And so knowing it was from the same writer, I was really looking forward to this movie. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is Lisa Frankenstein. Lisa Frankenstein is directed by Zelda Williams. In 1989, a misunderstood teenager has a high school crush who just happens to be a handsome corpse. After a set of playfully horrific circumstances bring him back to life, the two embark on a murderous journey to find love, happiness, and a few missing body parts along the way. So as I said, I was really excited to watch this movie because of the writer who worked on it. And honestly, the trailer just looked really entertaining. And this movie was okay. I'm kind of disappointed because this will be really interesting to talk about. I really enjoyed myself watching this movie, but the entire time I was watching it, I just was looking at all the ways that it fell short and all the ways where I felt like the movie could have been a cult classic or something where people will be talking about this movie for years and years to come. And instead, it's relatively flat. It takes a really long time to get going. The lead character is kind of a mess. And honestly, the character development as a whole is relatively lackluster. And I'll dive into all those different elements when I break the film apart. So at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Lisa, played by Kathryn Newton, who is living in a house with her dad, her stepmother, played by Carla Gugino, and her stepsister. And we find out really early in the movie that the reason why Lisa is in this situation is because her mother was brutally murdered at their old home. And Lisa is forced her senior year to move to this new school and to make new friends and to try to build new relationships. And she just feels really isolated. Everyone at school thinks she's really weird. Her stepsister is really nice to her, but in a way that feels kind of fakey at times. There's authenticity there, but you never know if she 100% believes everything that she's saying. And Lisa every day goes to the local graveyard and sits with the tombstones, and she does these sketch drawings. And there's one in particular that she has conversations with. And one night she goes to this party with her sister. Some things end up happening that she ends up going home after a drink that she has was spiked. She goes home and this horrible storm comes in. She ends up wishing in the graveyard that the person that she talked to was alive. And that's exactly what happens. The man inside the grave that she had been talking to comes to life, and he is played by Sprouse. The entire movie is Lisa and this creature and their budding relationship and all of the things that happen to them while he slowly turns back to normal by acquiring body parts. So as I said, I was really looking forward to this movie and it disappointed me, but I still had a really good time with it. And it's really interesting to talk about because there are some movies like that over the years that I have enjoyed, but I found a lot of problems with. For starters, I think all the performances here are really good. I think Kathryn Newton does a good job as the lead. Not all of her jokes land 100%, but I think she does a nice job with the character. I think Sprouse, for not having any lines throughout most of the movie, does a really great job, especially with the bodily comedy in the film. And he does a lot with his facial expressions. And honestly, I was really impressed with his performance. Everyone else in the film is pretty good. Carla Gugino is definitely a standout as the evil stepmother. She is hilarious. She's over the top. She's just an incredible actress that always delivers amazing performances. As far as the visual presentation of this movie, it's not spectacular. There's a couple animated sequences I like. The use of color in the movie is nice, but overall it's relatively flat. There's nothing super spectacular about the visual style, and there are some truly funny moments in it. There's a moment in particular in this movie towards the third act that had me laughing so hard I was crying. It was almost reminiscent of like a scene in a John Waters movie, just how like over the top and absurd and gross that it was. And there's a lot of those moments in the movie that really kind of take you by surprise, and I liked that a lot. Anytime the film was pushing boundaries and doing things that you wouldn't expect, that was when I was the most invested. But the problem here, the first half hour of this movie is a slog. It takes so long to establish the characters and do anything really unique or interesting. I was kind of just waiting for something to happen that would really draw me in. And they talk a lot about Lisa's mother's murder, and that becomes a thing at the beginning, but then they kind of just forget about it and don't really talk about it the rest of the movie. And it's really her only characteristic is that she's an oddball and that her mother was murdered. You don't really get a whole lot more about her as a character. And Kathryn Newton does a really great job in the performance, but her character just really isn't anything all that special. It's not like a character who I'm immediately attached to. You know, this movie is trying to pay homage to a very different era. You could feel like a very Tim Burton-esque style in this, but the thing about Tim Burton's movies, especially early in his career, when I think of something like Beetlejuice, is that all the characters are very memorable and there's a lot going on with the characters. And with Lisa's character in this, other than the traumatic incident that happened to her, she's just kind of an oddball and she likes music, and there really isn't all that much more to her character. We learn a little bit about Cole Sprouse's character, just enough that it's like leaves you questioning what's going on. But there's all this stuff with like her dad is kind of a creep in the way that he acts. The stepmom's character, played by Carla Gugino, is she's in it for a brief period, but there's nothing really all that unique about her character. And the plot devices that are used to kind of move the plot along, it turns into essentially like a slasher movie where people are getting killed off one by one. And I just felt like the shift in the tone to get to that point wasn't really ever earned. It was kind of just like, okay, we need this movie to get going, so let's do something to keep the audience invested. So having these murders occur will keep people engaged. And there's some funny moments that occur throughout because of it, but I just didn't feel like any of it was earned. I just felt like it was like, we got to get this thing going, so let's try to introduce something to keep the audience invested. And like I said, not all the humor works 100%. There are some moments that are absolutely hilarious, but there's a lot of moments that just fall flat. And I really enjoyed it towards the third act. I do think the movie wraps up in kind of a sloppy, rushed way that's just like, well, we got to get it to the finish line. And I don't know, overall, I enjoyed myself, but I left feeling ultimately unsatisfied, because just as like a cohesive narrative, it felt all over the place. Like it just felt like it was like Diablo Cody had all these really great ideas about like, oh, here's a girl who's gonna be dating this corpse, and they put all these different scenes together where it's like, oh, this would be funny and this would be funny, without like thinking through the whole narrative and how it would play out from point A to point B. And that's my biggest disappointment, is it's a movie that is a mess that has a lot of great moments in it. And I just wish that it would have been tidied up a little bit to make something truly special. So have you seen Lisa Frankenstein? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was enjoyable, but incredibly flawed. And I wish that there were a lot of things that were polished about it to make it a really enjoyable experience. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. Always putting out new material, and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.